1 week left in this year's legislative session. Let's find out what's going on over at the State House with our insiders. Antoine Seawright, our Democratic strategist, Dave Wilson, our Republican strategist. Guys, medical marijuana. Yesterday it looked like the issue was dead for the legislative year, but Dave, is there an effort to revive this before the end of the session next week?
Senator Tom Davis, the primary sponsor of S-150, senator out of Beaufort, is working very hard right now to find ways to turn around and attach that bill as an amendment to any other bill that he can. And there are a couple of bills that he's looking at right now in the Senate that could be attached and sent back over to the House. Because keep in mind, it died in the House over a procedural move, not a straight up or down vote. And that was a decisive move by leadership in the House to bring it into the discussion. But for Senator Tom Davis, this is nowhere near being done yet. He knows he's got 3 legislative days, and he's going to fight like crazy to turn around and see if he can get this bill through, because he's been at it for 8 years now.
I think it's safe to say the bill is on life support, but all of us know sometimes things on life support can be brought back to life. So like my friend Dave, I do agree there is an honest effort to perhaps pass this legislation, this legislative session, and send it to the governor's office. What I heard from the majority leader in the South Carolina Senate yesterday was that this will mean actually a political war between the House and the Senate if the medical marijuana bill dies, because there really has been a very intentional and conscious effort to do something that not many people thought could be done 8 to 10 years ago, and pass legislation so that South Carolina can then lead on something and not be in the back of the line.
Another big issue this week, the Women in Sports Act. Antoine, this has passed both bodies, the House and the Senate. Is this something that the governor is going to sign?
I would not be surprised in the middle of an election year if Governor McMaster signs this into law. But what we do know, and what I do know, is that the minute the bill is signed into law, if not already, there will be lawsuits filed in so many different places by a number of organizations that, although it may be a law on the books of South Carolina for now, if and when the governor signs it, that does not mean it will remain that way. The legal process will then have to play itself out, and we'll just have to see what the courts say. And South Carolina is not the only state who will have these type of battles and discussions. These things are happening all across the country, and that's part of the reason why this legislation made its way to the South Carolina General Assembly.
So the South Carolina House and Senate both debated this particular issue. It really boils down to who's going to be making the decisions about whether or not transgenders can play sports in South Carolina. Right now, that's being managed by the high school league, and the legislature has come back and said, wait a minute, we're going to set the rules for how this is going to be done. And as it stands right now, this would make South Carolina the 13th or 14th state to pass this. And as we see it moving forward, it's not having the impact that some folks are saying, like with NCAA tournaments and other things happening. So it'll be interesting to see once that does go through, whether or not it's going to have any impact in the courts or not.
I guess what's so funny about this, Dave, is the fact that from a Republican perspective, you all really march to the drumbeat of the government should not be intervening in certain spaces. They shouldn't be telling other entities what they should do, i.e. like the South Carolina High School League, who I think does a fantastic job with governing sports in South Carolina. But here's an example where state government, led by the Republican Party, is reaching deep and wide into telling the South Carolina High School League what to do. Now, whether you agree with the legislation or the proposal or not, that's no here nor there. I'm speaking directly to the fact that you have the state assembly reaching to the South Carolina High School League, telling them what they should be doing when it comes to high school sports. What we do not want to happen is for this to open up a can of worms, and this continues to happen on other areas, because I don't know too many members of the General Assembly who know anything about doing the business of sports, in particular like the high school league.
But this is also a place, Antoine, where we're actually talking about simple things like biology and the fact that biological males have advantages athletically over genetic females. And that's really what this boils down to. And folks at home, you understand this, because there's a difference between boys and girls when it comes to athletics. And that's what Title IX and 50 years of girls sports has been all about, Antoine. And that's an important thing to keep in mind.
Dave, again, I'm not arguing that point. You have your opinion and other people have theirs. I'm talking about the reach when it comes to government intervening in something like the South Carolina High School League. I'm speaking to that. Legislation, it's going to be what it's going to be, and the court's going to decide on that. Not up to Antoine Seawright, definitely not up to you, Dave, either, and not anybody else. The courts are going to decide. I'm talking about the reaching of the hand by the South Carolina General Assembly to implement, attempt to implement something that really should be up to the high school league.
Well, and for decades, Antoine, we know this, the far-reaching arm of the General Assembly, whether it was controlled by Republicans or controlled by Democrats, has been there for a very long time and most likely will continue to be.
We're going to have to stop the conversation there, guys. Antoine, Dave, as always, thank you so much. 3 days left in the regular session. It comes to an end next Thursday afternoon at 5 o'clock.